to close your eyes and think of the stories of your community, the stories of your friends, your neighbors, maybe your sister, your brother, your parents, your grandparents, your great-great-grandparents. A lot of them made the journey of immigration to Canada. And it's the same kind of thing that the women are going to tell you about this afternoon. So these women are part of a Canada-wide project called the Shoe Project, and it began in Toronto, and it was the brainchild of novelist Catherine Govier, and it has spread across the country from Toronto. So it's been done in a lot of places: Vancouver, Calgary, Canmore, let's see, where else? Halifax, and many times in Toronto, but it had never been done in such a small place. So this is the first time. We received funds for this project from the Shoe Project, the national organization, and from Culture Innovation Nova Scotia. Our wonderful local sponsor is Arts Health Antigonish, and partnering with ACALA, the terrific local organization we should be sponsoring, and an organization, of course, that you know and love, which is our own Theatre Antigonish, community theatre right here in town. So, over to Laura.
Thank you. I'm Laura Teasdale. I did the drama consulting for the show, and I'll just tell you really quickly how it worked, how we did it. Before I say anything, please remember to turn off your cell phones. So the way that it worked was we had 10 weeks of writing workshops, and every week we would come and Anne would give a different task and hone the skills of all the participants. It was fantastic. It really boosted our confidence and made us work together as a team. And then at Christmas we switched over and we started working here 2 days a week to prepare to put it on stage. So that's how it's all been going. And just want to say, please enjoy the work of these incredibly courageous women.
The tradition of wooden shoes. In April 1952, my family left Holland for our journey to a new land, Canada, where my father told me you could eat all the cake and cookies you wanted. That was my 9-year-old vision of this new country, one that was quite different from wartime Europe. Up until that time, I wore my wooden shoes every day, except Sunday, when we would wear a leather pair for church. My wooden shoes were painted white with a leather strap. When the feast of St. Nicholas came on the 5th of December, we would fill our wooden shoes with hay and a few carrots for St. Nicholas's white horse. When we arrived in Canada, we lived in Ontario from April until November, after which my father was out of work. Our relatives in Nova Scotia invited us to come and stay with them. So we packed up all our belongings in the back of a moving van, putting in the mattresses last, covered with wool blankets. We settled on those. It was dark and cold, as the door had to be kept open a little for air. We spent days and nights in the van as we had no money for hotels. A few years after we settled in Nova Scotia, my parents asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up. I told them I wanted to be a writer, something I had dreamed of doing. That was the wrong thing to say. And since I was the eldest daughter, I was taken out of school to stay home and help my mother. So I had 3 years of school in Holland and 3 in Canada. I knew my mother needed me, so I accepted my new role. However, a year or so later, my father asked me to help my brothers and sisters. He explained that my mother was not easy on the family. I did what I was told, but it affected me deeply. My mother started to resent me. My family came to me first for advice, and it took many years before I learned to let go of that responsibility. And only then did I truly understand how awful those first years in Canada were for my mother. Yet I went on to get married and raise a wonderful family. When one of my sons was getting married in 1997, he asked his brother to be his best man. And to my surprise, he asked me if I could get him a pair of wooden shoes. I thought of my children as true Canadians. It was my home as well. After I made a few trips back to Holland, though, I realized my love for the country where I was born. For the first time, I saw how we had instilled more of the Dutch tradition in our children than I realized. We often play Dutch music. Every Christmas, our children receive their own initial chocolate letter. I also cooked the food I grew up with, including Dutch Christmas cookies and cakes, and oliebollen, a traditional New Year food. Over the years, they met aunts and uncles who came to visit from Holland. So I found a pair of wooden shoes, and in his speech to the bride and groom, the best man, our son, welcomed the bride to our family with these Dutch shoes. That was a very special moment. Thank you.
Good job.
स्वप्न झड़े फूल से, मीत चुभे शूल से, लुट गए सिंगार सभी बाग के दुखों से, और हम खड़े खड़े बहार देखते रहे, कारवां गुजर गया गुबार देखते रहे.
The dreams wilted like flowers, friends pierced like the lances, plundered are all the adornments of the garden by the weeds. Standing and waiting, we kept on watching the spring. The caravan passed by, the trailing dust, we kept watching.
A journey. Delhi was home. I was at work. My mind was elsewhere, waiting for the news. It came. We are moving, I heard my husband say. My state of excitement was clearly shown on my face. My mind crisscrossed over so many things that needed to be done. How does one organize a move? What does one take and leave behind? I had grown up in India, had friends and family here. So again, a question in my mind. What did I want to take away with me? I calmed down, made a list of things: clothes, household stuff, music, spices, shoes, almost everything. It was 1999. We moved to Lusaka, where we stayed for 3 years. It is a beautiful place and different, untouched by people, or should I say visitors. We saw Victoria Falls in all its glory. Musi Otunya, that is what the Zambians call it, the smoke that thunders. It's difficult to describe. You need to see it for yourself. Once we saw a cheetah that was panting and exhausted with the tearing and eating its prey, the blood drooling from its mouth. The vultures were circling down to finish the leftovers. Not sure how to describe it, majestic or breathtaking, to see nature's raw power. 3 years went by. We traveled through some parts of Africa with family and friends. I had a lovely pair of sneakers to keep me comfortable. They were breathable and soft, so my feet snuggled in and did not complain. Then, opportunity knocked. We are moving, I heard my husband say. We are going to Atlanta, Georgia, in the USA. Straight from the rustic and wild nature to the land which everyone dreams of going. Not anymore. My mind went over it again. What can I take away from Zambia? Our friends came to the airport. It's emotional, leaving friends. I had memories that I was taking away. And the shoes that I had bought in India and had worn to so many places were now packed. I was excited again as I would make new friends and see another world. Mind you, it was different from all that I had imagined. A huge airport, broad roads, enormous buildings and shopping malls. Everywhere I looked, it was huge, all manicured and pedicured. It was nice while we were there. Not to say we did not have fun, but when comparing it to Africa, it fell short. My shoes took a break. 4 years went by. This time, we both decided we are moving. Bangkok was next, a place of vibrancy and excitement. We were there for 5 years. Life was fun with friends, the margarita evenings, the nonsensical talks, the show of emotion, to the togetherness. 17-year-old Ruby worked as a maid for us. I realized the emotional connection of having a daughter at home then. We miss her a lot. Not for the work. She would mom me into doing most of it anyways. Come on, shoes. We are going on another journey. This time, Antigonish, a small little town on the Atlantic side of Canada. It is in Nova Scotia, the most beautiful province I've ever seen, a place where you could see heavenly sunrises and sunsets, and not to forget the snow during winter. Our neighbor would shovel snow at midnight sometimes. If I saw him while wandering around the house due to sleeplessness, I would wake Anuj. Gary is shoveling. We need to shovel. When we became friends, I asked him, why did he shovel at midnight? He laughed and laughed, telling us, I hadn't exercised, hence the shoveling. We've been here for 8 years. We enjoyed the quietness and time with our friends. In 8 years, I've seen my son grow up into a wonderful human being and a musician. I did pick a good pair of shoes, which have taken me places in Nova Scotia, and hope for more. Is this home? Am I there? I don't know, but it sure looks like it. I'm ready to hang up my shoes. Or maybe another journey. Thank you.
Sinh nhật thiên di của Trần Hạ Vi. Xa xăm mùng khơi muôn trùng biển thẳm, nơi nào chẳng là nhà. nơi nào chẳng là bờ, nơi nào chẳng là mảnh đất yêu thương. Tình yêu chan chứa gói trọn một vòng quả đất.
Extremely far and across the deep oceans, anywhere is home. Anywhere is the shore. Anywhere is the beloved land. Faith and love cover the whole round earth.
My Black Padded Boot by Soo Kyeong Lee. In South Korea, there are people who are very superstitious. My mother is one of those people. The number 4 is bad luck in Korea, so some buildings don't have a first floor. Another superstition is that before moving into a new house, you must cook red beans to prevent a ghost from haunting it. Before moving into our first new house, we went there to clean. We saw some small round things in every corner. I called my mom and she explained that she had put beans in the corners instead of cooking them. Another superstition is that if shoes are given as a present, the person who received them will run away from the relationship. One day, at the beginning of the winter in Incheon, my mother and I went to a mall to look for winter boots for her. When we entered the shop, I saw a pair of padded boots that I liked. So I tried them on. They were very comfortable, warm, and soft. I liked them a lot, but they were expensive. I just looked and touched them. Do you like those? My mom asked. I will pay for them, so take them to the counter. I was so surprised about her buying them because she only bought shoes for me when I was a child. 1 year later, while I was having dinner with my husband, Colin suddenly said, I want to go back to Canada and become a school teacher. So I'd like to go to school this September. What? I said. This September? Yes, it seems rushed, but the sooner the better. I know it's a really big decision for us, but I promise to make your life so much better and happier. Well, okay. I knew when I married him, I would have to move to his country one day. So we decided to move. After that, we were very busy wrapping up everything. But it took so long that Colin had to go to Canada before me. Finally, when I left South Korea, my mother cried a lot at the airport. And she said I shouldn't have bought those boots. I knew I should wear the boots because I wanted to show my mom how much I liked her gift. But they were very hot and uncomfortable on the plane. However, when I stepped outside the Halifax airport, it was freezing. Oh my God, it's very cold. Yes, welcome to Canada, Colin said. 1 month after I had arrived in Canada, I received a letter from immigration. I was already in Canada, but I had to leave and come back again for what is called the landing process. So I decided to go to my sister's house in the US for 2 weeks without calling. When I got to the Toronto airport, it was snowing a lot, so my next flight was cancelled. The Delta workers sent me in a different direction, which meant I went 2 days without sleep. Honestly, I was scared and lonely at first, but I started to talk to my boots as if they were my mother. Of course, I wore my boots throughout the whole journey. So I stopped being scared and lonely. I was with my mother. 3 weeks later, I landed in Canada and finally received my permanent residency. Well, it's winter again. I'm wearing my boots every day, and if I ever get lonely again, I can always talk to my padded boots as if they were my mom.
Sit, alibang-bang, sa laginto at sa lagubang. Ang babae sa lansangan, kung gumiri parang tandang.
Shooby-doo-wah-wah, shooby-doo-wah. The woman on the street struts around like a rooster.
My Birkenstocks by Karen Bissonnette. In spring 1998, Paul and I decided to buy a property in Canada in order to move there when I retire. Searching from Ontario to Nova Scotia, we finally found the right place. It was an exhausting time, and I was happy to have my Birkenstocks with me to relax my feet. They were healthy and fit perfectly for walking, my favorite daily shoes. In Germany, after my divorce, I lived alone for 8 years with my 2 children before I met Paul. I worked as a pharmaceutical representative and was very busy. 2 friends had a get-together at their home every Wednesday, and at 10 p.m. there was a spaghetti dinner. Everyone was welcome, but for me it was mostly too late. At one point, my children and I met one of them. "Why don't you come to our gathering?" he asked. "Our house is not that far from yours." "Okay, I will come next Wednesday. You told me this 3.5 years ago. Are you sure you will come?" "Yes, this time I will come," I answered. But after a nice dinner with friends and their children, I really didn't want to go to the gathering. "I don't think I will go to Siggy and Baldi's," I said to my children. "Mom, you have to go. You promised." And so I went there. Because of Ash Wednesday, there was only one guest who looked different than most Germans with his long hair and beard. I learned he was from Canada. This night, he walked me home. The next day, he called me, and I invited him to visit us following day. He came and never left, and still is here. When I introduced Paul to my mother as my new partner, she said to him, "I'm happy that you found each other, but why do you have a Canadian? Why not a European?" She was afraid I would move far away. 1.5 years later we married, and the next year we went with my children to Canada to visit Paul's family. In Alberta, we met his ex-wife and his 2 children, bought a very old car, and went camping with all the kids. Then we drove to Ontario to visit Paul's mother and siblings. "This car isn't staying in my yard." These were my mother-in-law's first words. She looked at me and laughed. "Sorry, but look around. All my children let their old car in my place." Looking at Paul, she said, "You made a German out of him." I had cut his hair and beard very short. But then we had nice holidays there. In Nova Scotia, our property in Antigonish was a construction site, and we came each year to finish the house. To save money, we bought a used car, stayed 2 years at a friend's place, and moved into the basement when the concrete floor and water were in. This was a wonderful time with our handmade furniture and second-hand appliances. One evening, when there was nice music on the radio, we danced. The Birkenstocks were not made for dancing, and I thought of the shoes I wore at the ball at the end of my dancing class when I was 15 years old. I had the feeling I could fly over the dancing floor. Finally, in 2004, our house was finished. I was sorry my mother couldn't see my new home. She had passed away in 2000. My son wanted to stay in Germany, but my daughter followed us 2 years later. I took my cat with me, and naturally, my Birkenstocks.
돌담에 속삭이는 햇발같이 풀 아래 웃음 짓는 샘물같이 내 마음 고요히 고운 봄길 위에 오늘 하루 하늘을 우러르고 싶다. 새학시 볼에 떠오르는 부끄럼같이 시의 가슴 살풋이 젖는 물결같이 보드레한 에메랄드 얇게 흐르는 실비단 하늘을 바라보고 싶다.
Like sunbeams whispering to the stone wall, like spring water smiling below grass. On the lovely spring path silently, my heart wants to look up to the sky today. Like the shyness emerging on cheeks of a bride, like the wave drenching lightly on a poem's heart. Yarn silk sky flowing thin, soft emerald. I would love to look up.
My family has a pair of sneakers by Almudena Garcia-Garcia. When I returned to Spain in March 2018 for the wedding of my sister, I realized that saying goodbye to my family was getting harder with time. It wasn't because I didn't want to stay in Canada, but because I didn't want to leave them behind. That time I went to Spain, I stayed there for almost a month. It was my longest visit since I came to Canada in 2014. We enjoyed a lovely, touching wedding, but as with all trips and celebrations, it had an end. And this one culminated a day after the wedding in a sea of tears. The day of my departure, I was preparing to take the bus to the airport, and while I was tying my sneakers, the black one I wore for dancing at the wedding, I remembered the pair that I wore for my first flight to Canada. They were very similar except for the color. The old ones were the cause of a small argument with my mom a few days before leaving home. I was packing my suitcase and she was helping me. I think it's more accurate to say that she was supervising me. She didn't want me to forget anything important or to put something old in the suitcase. When I tried to put in my pair of sneakers, she asked, "You aren't thinking of wearing those old shoes in Canada, are you?" "Well, actually, I'm going to wear them during the flight." "Are you crazy? Those sneakers are decrepit. They even have holes in them." After taking a deep breath, I replied, "I know, but they are my favorite pair and I can't leave them behind." "Choose another pair of shoes, you have lots of them." "But I like this one and I want to bring them with me." She looked at me with tired eyes and said, "Just as starboard as your father, you'll remember me when your feet get wet because of those holes." That time I won, but although I don't like to admit it, my mother was right. The first day I stepped on Canadian soil, it was raining and my feet got wet. The worst thing was that unlike the dry weather of Murcia, my place of birth, streets in Canada are wet most of the time. And after a while, long enough for my mother to stop asking about the sneakers, I tossed them into the back of my closet. I still think they are my favorite shoes because they are the most unique pair of purple shoes that I have ever had. And I'm glad I didn't leave them behind. And here I was, again, after my sister's wedding, tying another pair of sneakers to get ready to leave on my flight. However, it wasn't going to be so easy. Before my sister drove my partner and me to the bus station, she asked us to write a few lines in her wedding guest book. When I was writing that little piece, the words were flowing from my mind at the same rate as the tears were streaming from my eyes. I remember I couldn't see clearly, and I didn't check my spelling. I tried to remember what I wrote that day, but I can't. I asked, she asked, hugging each other, awash in tears. That day, I really wished that my family could be like a pair of sneakers and fit in my suitcase. Thank you.
A poem by my sister, Renée. Cold, grey, felty winter, lashed by clouds, no horizons, into the rising sun. We'll take you round the Pacific, they said, rushing out after days past, days to come, longitudes pursued by propane and propeller, geography lessons rolling by, in toy town replication, to go where?
Renée, and the title of my story is Killer Shoes. When I was 24, a long time ago, in 1971, I came to Canada from the Philippines. Given my work experience, I started my job search in the educational field. But anywhere I went, the first question asked was, "Do you have Canadian experience?" To which I must have replied incredulously, saying, "But I have just arrived on your fair shores." Clearly, I had to change courses. The business world was more accommodating. I became a private secretary to a sales executive who in fact became my career-long mentor. Almost immediately, he started assigning me with sales and marketing tasks, and after further training, I was transferred to Toronto and promoted to product manager. My first foray on my own was to make presentations to brokers in 4 major cities across Canada. I remembered being nervous, actually terrified. But paramount in my mind was the fact that I should be most professional and look professional in these presentations. I needed a new wardrobe of suits and blazers, shoes, and accessories. Each presentation became easier. I became confident, self-assured, relying on my killer shoes as talisman to get me through. Those killer shoes screamed high quality. Classic black pumps of the finest leather. I never looked back. Eventually, I was promoted to account manager, selling to major corporations in 4 continents across the globe. At this point, I should mention that the relative ease with which I progressed my career was partly, just partly, due to my husband, David. Loving, most of the time, but always encouraging and supportive. Being an engineer, he provided me with mathematical calculations and technical data to enhance my presentations to clients. He opened my mind and my eyes to the technical aspects of the products I was promoting. As account manager, I was offered to head my division twice, which I refused because I did not want to stray from my comfort zone. Consequently, I had to report to 2 bosses whom I tried to familiarize with the business, but neither one of them fit. Shortly after, the president of the company phoned me from Montreal saying, "I'd like to meet with you in Toronto." At this meeting, he said, "Will you please reconsider being the head of your department? You've seen how we have had 2 candidates who didn't work out. I've seen your performance. I think you'll be happy and fulfilled in this new position." Actually, I laughed in his face and said, "I don't think so. I'm really okay where I am. But thank you very kindly." After parrying for some 3 hours, he broke me down and convinced me. But I had the last word. I said, as long as I can go back if I'm not happy in the new position. And he said, I promise you, you have my word. He was happy he was able to go back to Montreal the very same day. After being director of sales and marketing, I realized it was a good fit. There was a learning curve which I navigated slowly but surely. I had a lovely executive office with a fancy schmancy computer and all the tech toys I could possibly need and want. It proved that business was indeed my passion. It also proved a Confucius saying. The man said, if you like what you do, you never work a day in your life. True? I think he was overstating his aphorism because I worked long hours and I worked very hard. But at the end of the day, it was a very rewarding and enriching experience. And yet I knew when to retire, stop working, and enter the realm of retirement. My husband and I moved to beautiful Nova Scotia in the sylvan, lovely setting of Loch Havre, where he was born and raised. I worked with a company I loved for 25 years, but I thought it was best to leave at the top of a most successful and satisfying career. I had to set aside a fine succession of killer shoes and relocate my feet to mules, clogs, sandals, loafers. But I have to conclude that those killer shoes gave me a good, long run.
Ich kann die Sprache dieses kühlen Landes nicht und seinen Schritt nicht gehen. Auch die Wolken, die vorbeiziehen, weiß ich nicht zu deuten. Die Nacht ist eine Stiefkönigin, meine Lippen leuchten schon und sprechen Fernes.
I don't know the language of this cool country, and its pace is not mine, nor can I interpret the clouds that pass. The night is a queen. Already my lips are luminous and speak far things.
Boots for the Great White Polar Bear Country by Ngoc Nguyen. My fourth winter in Canada is coming. The first snow day this year was October 18. It's way earlier than I thought. Sitting near the warm stove in the corner of the house, I looked through the window observing more and more white butterflies landing on the ground. A Canadian white winter. This had been an obsession of mine since we decided to go to Canada 5 years ago, in 2013. After I finished my PhD degree in finance in Melbourne, Australia, we had to decide on our next destination. My home country, Vietnam, South Korea, Malaysia. How about moving to Canada? Said Ryan, finally. But you left there 16 years ago, I replied in surprise. We can always try, and I'll have you. I felt the shock of it a few days after our conversation. It suddenly came to me that I would be going to the great white polar bear country. I had been there once, yes, but in the summer. Now I needed to learn to deal with snow, the white angel, the white destroyer. The next few days, I texted back and forth with my friends in Germany about her experience. It ended up with her asking me to buy her some Ugg boots. To have warm boots in the winter was important, she stressed. I went to the shopping center to pick the style she wanted and chose a pair for myself. Soft black sheepskin boots that went halfway up the calf with 3 buttons on the side. They had a very classic look. The salesperson told me that design provided maximum protection against the cold. Yay, I was going to the North Pole anyway. My home family landed in Cambridge, Ontario in June 2015. The first 6 months in a new country were the most frustrating. I did not have friends here, and I could not go anywhere easily because there was limited public transit compared to Melbourne. Ryan became my main taxi driver. I failed my first driving test. I applied for so many jobs without any reply. Sometimes I felt so useless in this new country. And day by day, it seemed like I had a light depression. But I started to write. It saved me. I wrote Vietnamese poems, learned poetry, struggled with poetry, and met online friends with other Vietnamese writers. In the first year of writing, I wrote 850 poems. Ryan used to joke that I blitzed out poems. And the job came. First, I got an instructor job for 2 courses at Brock University, then another course at McMaster University. And my only flight out interview with San Francisco Xavier University turned out to be a job offer for a tenure track position. Yay! My first full-time job after so many years at university. We back again, hired a very large van and moved all the way to Antigonish, Nova Scotia in July 2016, with the boots from Australia, of course. I never thought that I would enjoy life that much in a little town with a population of 5,000. But I do. We bought our first home. Our daughter is in French immersion and plays hockey. I published my first poetry book in Vietnamese and worked hard on my academic papers. After so many years of moving, I feel proud. We may not live here forever, but we treasure it. I look again through the window. Yes, still large white butterflies. But in the spring, I'll learn how to write. Thank you.
De dichter passeerde hier op zijn reis. Hij schrijft zichzelf op het water. Liefde alleen in de dingen, uit wolken en winden gesneden. Nergens in dit heelal heb ik een vaste woonplaats. Zet je sandalen maar onder de boom, leg je penzielen te rusten. Het licht is voor jou ook de nacht. Ook ik werd verleid door de wind.
Here passed by the poet on his journey. He is writing himself upon the water. Things cut out of clouds and winds. Nowhere in this universe have I a fixed dwelling, he wrote. Leave your sandals under the tree, lay your brushes aside. The light is yours, and the night. I too was tempted by the wind that blows the clouds.
Silver Sandals by Joshi. It is 1967. I have been married 1 month. An arranged marriage to a stranger who has taken me to this country, Canada. I'm getting ready to go to a party. Tonight, I will meet his colleagues, the physicists. I arrange the folds of my pink silver brocade sari, slip my feet into the silver sandals, remembering how I acquired them. My parents had come to me. Father said, now that you are teaching in a college and are independent, it's time to get married. My mother added, if you know of someone or like someone, let us know, and we will meet him. But I had been raised in a protective family environment in a small town. Studying in an all-girls college, staying in girls-only residence, I never had the chance to meet anyone. I replied, you are my parents. I trust you. Thus, the marriage process started. Parents contacted their friends, who contacted friends of friends. That's how I found myself at my dad's friend's house in Delhi, waiting to be interviewed by the suitable boy and his family. Uncle briefed me about the boy's family. They also belong to an upper middle class family and were looking for a well-educated girl. Uncle said, show me which sari and shoes you'll be wearing. My clothing was approved, but my shoes were rejected. You have to wear some heels. They make you look classy and elegant. His opinion carried weight as he knew the ways of the big city. Off I went with Uncle to the best shoe shop in Delhi. I spent hours trying on pumps, platforms, pencils, kittens, sandals, slingbacks, teetering in heels. Then, eureka! Found a pair of silver slingbacks with 2-inch heels. Next morning was spent in mastering the technique of walking in them without tripping over myself. The suitable boy and his family came. I brought in a tray full of dainty teacups and sweets without tripping even once. I replied to all the questions. I was approved. Then came the shocking part of the interview. The suitable boy's family mentioned dowry in a roundabout way. We are sure you will want your daughter to be very happy. This is our only son, and we have spent a lot of money on his education. Maybe a car would be in order for her. My parents and I were totally against any type of dowry. My foremost thought was that my parents had also spent a lot of money on my education too. I relate my response through uncle. No, not interested. I went back to my teaching job with those heels tucked in my suitcase. The process went on for months. Suitable boys interviewing me interviewing them. He's too traditional. He's too modern. He drinks. She is too independent. She is dark. She studied away from home for so many years. Sources from friends tapered off. I was labeled too picky. My mother got very frustrated. My father resorted to answering the ads in the newspaper Matrimonial. And that's how he found me the perfect boy. With compassion for my parents, this boy from Canada wrote, "You only had 2 daughters. Would you be willing to let your eldest one go so far away from you?" He had absolutely no demands and actually insisted I should leave my parental home without buying any new clothes. It has been a month since marrying this gentle stranger with kind eyes, a lovely smile, strong principles, and high ideals. I am in Canada with my silver heels as a reminder that I can stay true to my values and integrity and still have something and someone beautiful in my life. Thank you.
Caminantes son tus huellas el camino y nada más. Caminante no hay camino, se hace camino al andar. Al andar se hace el camino y al volver la vista atrás se ve la senda que nunca se ha de volver a pisar. Caminante, no hay camino, sino estelas en la mar.
Traveler, your footsteps are the way and nothing more. Traveler, there is no way. The way is made by walking. Walking makes the way. And looking back at the view behind shows the path that is never treaded again. Traveler, there is no way, but wakes upon the sea.
मेरा जूता है जापानी, ये पतलून इंग्लिशानी, सर पे लाल टोपी,